Kippur riots shapes present-day attitudes? Does it make individuals more discriminatory towards an out-group? Does it make them more trustworthy towards their in-group? To answer these questions, I conducted interviews, surveys, and behavioral economic experiments. My main finding was that priming anger over the riots reduced altruism to all groups, and that blame for the riots fell on both in-group and out-group members. What my dissertation didn't answer, but was hinted at when talking to people in Accra, was that many politicians exploited and amplified grievances from the Yom Kippur riots. For instance, Yuval Steinitz, a right-wing Likud member of the Knesset, MK, called the riot a pogrom against Accra's Jews. Palestinian-Israeli MK, Ta'al Party, Ahmed Tibi, said it was a pogrom against Palestinian Israelis. I wanted to understand how politicians exploited violence and contention. How do politicians use insults, accusations, intimidating statements, incitement, and actual violence against their political opponent? I also wanted to understand the logic behind this nasty style of politics. My initial view was that nasty politics was a phenomenon that largely happened outside of American politics. It was something that was a regular feature in places with political violence like Israel, or in less mature democracies like Turkey or Ukraine, but not in the U.S. As an assistant professor, I ended up conducting most of my field research outside of the U.S., including Israel, Turkey, Georgia, Mexico, and Ukraine. But as the 2016 U.S. presidential election approached, I realized a lot of things that I took for granted about the uniqueness of modern U.S. politics, in particular the lack of contention and nastiness, were wrong. In other countries in which I've done research, nasty politics is not some political sideshow, but a prominent rhetorical strategy. For instance, in 2015, Israel's right-wing foreign minister and head of Israel Beitenu, Avigdor Lieberman, spoke about Israel's Palestinian minority. "Those who are against us, there's nothing to be done. We need to pick up an axe and cut off their head. Otherwise, we won't survive here." Trump's presidential campaign began with his speech that Mexico was sending rapists across the border, and his presidency ended in January 2021 following a failed coup attempt that culminated in his armed supporters storming the U.S. Capitol in an attempted insurrection. Trump's presidency showed that the factors that made America exceptional, a stable two-party system and strong presidential system, also masked some important facts about American politics that were less exceptional. Scholars of racial politics have long recognized this more violent and contentious nature of U.S. politics. Politicians in the U.S. play the race card and prime threat from minorities and immigrants to try to build coalitions and win elections. The U.S. was thought to be the exception to Juan Lince's argument that strong presidential systems tend to polarize society, are inflexible, and can lead to political instability and coups. But the U.S. is no longer the exception to the rule. Traditionally, comparative politics, the study of places and politics outside the U.S., and American politics have been separate subfields in political science. The contention and nastiness of politics in places like Accra, Israel, are distinct from the well-defined rules of the U.S. congressional committee system. Yet, American politics has a lot more in common with the contentious contexts, Israel, Ukraine, and so on, than the subfield boundaries and political science would have us believe. All politics involves comparisons. Why did candidate X do this, but Y did that? We are all comparativists, trying to make sense of why things happened in one place or context and not in another. Name-calling and intimidating statements that happen in Ukraine, Israel, or the U.S. come in different flavors, but there are similar strategies employed. In this book, I take a comparative approach rooted in political violence to study nasty politics. Why do politicians insult, accuse, intimidate, incite violence, and even engage in actual violence against their political opponents?